Everyone remembers that jaw-dropping draft moment when Yang Hansen's name was called, sending shockwaves through the entire NBA world. A 7'1" center from China, who wasn't even dressed for the occasion, suddenly found himself at the center of one of the wildest draft stories in recent memory. But here's the thing, that shocking announcement was just the beginning, because now the question isn't about how surprising the pick was. The question is whether Yang Hansen can survive in the most unforgiving basketball league on the planet. Will he prove Portland's gamble to be genius, or will he fade away like so many other draft night shocks? The answer to that lies in what comes next. On draft night, Yang Hansen was the last person who thought his name would echo through that arena. Most mock drafts had him buried deep in the second round, if they mentioned him at all. He wasn't sitting at a green room table with polished suits and cameras waiting to capture his reaction. He was in the crowd, snacks in hand, treating the night like a spectator. And then came the moment nobody saw coming. Adam Silver stepped to the podium and announced Yang Hansen as the 16th pick of the first round. Gasps filled the room. Analysts scrambled through their notes. The cameras caught a stunned young man who looked more like a fan caught on the Jumbotron than a freshly drafted pro. But draft night chaos only lasts a few minutes. Once the headlines fade, the reality sets in. For Yang Hansen, that reality is stepping into a league where every opponent is bigger, stronger, and faster than anything he's ever faced in the Chinese Basketball Association. The question shifts from, how did this happen, to, what does he do now? Before that shocking draft moment, Yang Hansen had already carved out a name for himself back home in China. Playing for Qingdao in the Chinese Basketball Association, he wasn't just another tall body on the floor, he was a force. Over 96 games, he averaged nearly 16 points, more than 10 rebounds, and close to 2.5 blocks per night. Those numbers made him not only a dependable scorer, but also one of the league's best rim protectors. In the 2024 to 2025 season, he collected accolades that made scouts turn their heads: Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and even an All-Star nod. But it wasn't just the stat lines that stood out. At 7'1" with surprising mobility, Yang brought something scouts crave in the modern game: versatility. He wasn't a lumbering big man who lived only in the paint. He showed flashes of outside shooting, a soft touch on passes, and the vision to read the floor like a playmaker. That rare combination is exactly why Portland decided he was worth the gamble. And let's not forget the historical weight on his shoulders. Yang Hansen became only the third Chinese-born player ever selected in the first round of the NBA draft, and the first since 2007. That milestone means he's carrying not just his own dreams, but also the expectations of a nation eager to see another star rise on the world's biggest stage. But while his dominance in the CBA proved he could handle that league, the NBA is a completely different animal. The speed, the spacing, the physicality, they test even the most decorated international stars. Which raises the question, how do his skills translate to a league filled with giants who thrive on exposing weaknesses? When you look at Yang Hansen on paper, it's easy to see why the Blazers pulled the trigger. At 7'1" with a wingspan that seems to stretch forever, he checks the first box every scout wants: size. But what really caught attention wasn't just his height, it was the flashes of skill that don't usually come packaged with that kind of frame. In the Chinese league, he showed a willingness to step out beyond the paint, knock down mid-range jumpers, and even fire off the occasional three. More importantly, he had the vision to make passes that most centers wouldn't even attempt. His draft profile literally praised his scoring and passing at all three levels, not the usual words you expect for a 19-year-old center. Still, the NBA is ruthless. His draft profile didn't sugarcoat it. He needs to add strength and adjust to the speed of the league. At about 250 pounds and just 19, he'll be facing freakish athletes every night. Scouts flagged concerns over mobility and quickness, especially on defense. Those weaknesses don't erase his potential, but they make him a high-variance gamble, the kind of player who could evolve into a modern, versatile big or struggle to survive in the physical, fast NBA? If you're looking for comparisons, there are plenty. Some optimists point to Nikola Vucevic or Alperen Sengun, centers who aren't the most athletic but carved out all-star caliber careers with skill and intelligence. Skeptics see him closer to past international experiments who never adjusted to the NBA's speed and physicality. Both sides agree on one thing: Hansen isn't a safe bet. He's a swing for upside, a player Portland believes could grow into a rare mismatch weapon in a league dominated by versatile bigs like Nikola Jokic and Victor Wembanyama. But potential only matters if it shows up under NBA lights, and that's where Summer League comes in. The first real test that revealed just how much of his CBA game could translate against NBA-level athletes. Las Vegas Summer League is where dreams either catch fire or fizzle out fast. For Yang Hansen, it was the first time American fans got to see what Portland's front office had seen all along, and the early returns? Eye-opening. Going into July, most analysts expected him to look overwhelmed. After all, it's a jump from the CBA straight into facing hungry rookies, fringe NBA players, and young stars fighting for roster spots. But instead of shrinking under the pressure, Yang started showing flashes that silenced some doubters. Reports out of Vegas praised his rim protection, his timing on blocks, and even his offensive instincts. SB Nation ranked him among the top international bigs in the tournament, highlighting how his size and mobility stood out on both ends of the court. It wasn't perfect. At times, he struggled with foul trouble, getting baited by quicker guards in pick and rolls. And the physical battles against bulkier centers reminded everyone that he still needs to add serious strength. But there was also a sequence, a chase-down block followed by a transition assist that had scouts nodding their heads. Plays like that are why Portland gambled on him. Most importantly, Summer League proved that Yang wasn't just a headline draft shock, he could actually hold his own in NBA action. And for Portland, that was all the confirmation they needed to double down on their development plan. But fitting into a Summer League rotation is one thing. Cracking an NBA roster loaded with veterans and competing bigs is another. And that's where Portland's gamble comes into focus. For the Portland Trail Blazers, drafting Yang Hansen wasn't just about adding another tall body. It was a calculated gamble, one that spoke volumes about their long-term vision. This is a franchise that has been stuck between rebuilding and chasing relevance for years. After trading stars and reshaping their roster, they needed a bold move, something that could change their trajectory. That's why they didn't just wait for Hansen to fall. They traded down from 11 to 16, picked up a future first and 2 seconds, and still walked away with Yang Hansen, a bold gamble that could pay off even bigger. The move drew mixed reactions. Critics argued Portland already had a crowded front court, with DeAndre Ayton anchoring the paint and young pieces like Jabari Walker and Chris Murray fighting for minutes. Why add a raw international prospect who might take years to develop? The Athletics' David Aldridge even ranked Portland's offseason just 19th out of 30, pointing to Hansen as a risky, unproven addition. But inside the Blazers front office, the story looks very different. Mike Schmitz, their assistant general manager and a respected international scout, has built a reputation for spotting hidden gems. This wasn't a panic pick, it was the product of years of scouting, interviews, and quiet confidence. To them, Hansen represents upside, a 7-footer who could become a versatile weapon in a league dominated by big men who can pass, shoot, and protect the rim. Portland isn't expecting Hansen to dominate from day one. What they want is growth. They want him to learn behind Ayton, to take lumps in practice, to build his frame with NBA trainers. If he develops as they believe, he could eventually fit perfectly alongside Scoot Henderson and the young Blazers core, a big who doesn't just clog the paint, but can keep the offense moving. Still, the risk is undeniable. A roster spot in the NBA isn't charity, and patience in professional basketball runs thin. Hansen will have to prove quickly that he's not just a draft night headline, but a real piece of Portland's future. But the pressure isn't only coming from Portland's locker room. Half a world away, an entire nation is watching, hoping and waiting for him to succeed. Back in China, Yang Hansen's draft wasn't just a sports headline, it was front-page news. Fans flooded social media the moment Adam Silver called his name, stunned and proud at the same time. After all, it had been nearly 2 decades since Yi Jianlian was taken in the first round in 2007. For many, Yang represented not only a player, but a revival of hope that China could once again have a major presence in the NBA. The pressure, though, is immense. Every game he plays, whether in Summer League or preseason, is dissected online by millions of fans. His highlights trend on Weibo, his stats are debated on forums, and his name is constantly compared to the giants who came before him: Yao Ming, Yi Jianlian, even Zhou Qi. The message is clear: the Chinese basketball community desperately wants Yang to succeed where others fell short. That spotlight can be both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it guarantees that Yang already has a global fan base, one that could make him a marketing star even before he establishes himself on the court. Endorsement opportunities, brand deals, national team expectations, they're all waiting. On the other hand, the weight of carrying those expectations at just 20 years old is enormous. If he stumbles, critics will be quick to label him another failed experiment, a harsh judgment that could follow him for years. What makes this moment so fascinating is the tension between possibility and pressure. Yang Hansen has the chance to ignite basketball fever in China again, but the margin for error is razor thin. And that's what makes his story so compelling. He's not only playing for a roster spot in Portland, he's playing for the pride of a nation that hasn't seen one of its own thrive in the NBA since Yao Ming. But as much as international expectations matter, the NBA is ultimately unforgiving. Success in this league comes down to what you do on the hardwood one, and for Yang Hansen, that means facing the harsh reality of 2 very different paths that lie ahead. For Yang Hansen, the path forward is as uncertain as it is exciting. On one end of the spectrum lies the dream scenario, a player who grows into his frame, adds strength, and hones his skill set until he becomes the type of modern big man every team is searching for. Imagine a 7-footer who can protect the rim, space the floor, and keep the offense alive with smart passes. If that version of Hansen shows up, the Blazers won't just look clever, they'll look like geniuses who found a cornerstone when nobody else saw it coming. But the other path is equally possible. The NBA is littered with stories of international prospects who arrived with hype, only to struggle against the speed, strength, and relentless grind of the league. If Hansen can't adjust physically, if foul trouble and conditioning keep him chained to the bench, he risks becoming another what could have been story. A forgotten draft night headline, remembered more for the surprise than for the career that followed. The truth is, both futures are wide open. His skill set makes him one of the most intriguing swing bets in recent draft history. High upside, high risk. For Portland, that's exactly the kind of gamble you make when you're trying to rebuild into something special. For Yang Hansen, it's the kind of gamble that will define his entire legacy. Because for every critic who insists the Blazers reach too far, there are fans who believe this could be the beginning of something historic. And only time and Yang Hansen's ability to rise to the occasion will tell which side is right. Yang Hansen's story didn't end on draft night, it started there. The shock of hearing his name called was only the opening chapter. Now the real drama begins. Can a 7'1" center from Qingdao, who stunned the NBA world in casual clothes, truly carve out a place in the League of Giants? Or will his name fade into the long list of prospects who never found their footing? For Portland, the decision has already been made. They believe in his upside, they're betting on his growth, and they're ready to give him the time to prove everyone wrong. For China, the pressure and expectations are sky high. The dream of another Yao Ming rests, in part, on Yang's shoulders. And for the NBA, his journey is a reminder of what makes this league so unpredictable. The next star can come from anywhere, and sometimes from the players nobody expected. So, as the cameras fade and the work begins, one question remains. Will Yang Hansen be remembered as the draft's biggest shock, or as the player who shocked everyone twice, first by being picked, and then by becoming a star?